Morning, everyone.
Morning.
How you guys all doing today so far? All's well? I'm glad to see that there's a decent turnout for people who want to know how to build products that don't suck. It's always a perk. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to go through this content and give some opportunity for Q&A at the end. I like to make this a bit more collaborative, so try to do that as quickly as possible. And if you have something you want to throw out there at any point, just let's discuss. So to give you some idea, just so I can sample the room a little bit, as far as level of seniority in product, if I show my hands, how many people in here have more than 5 years of experience in the product? Okay, cool, thank you. So a good portion, maybe half or so. This gives me a good idea as far as the level of complexity going into here, so let's kind of jump right in. Okay, so who am I and why are you listening to me, at least for now? My name is Sean Boyce. As he had mentioned, I run NxtStep Consulting here in Philly. We help people with what I call digital product strategy. And for everybody in here that also is a product manager, I'm sure sometimes people have no idea what that means to you as well. What it means to me is helping people take their technical products to the next level, wherever they may be. If you're younger, the product's more mature, whatever that is, bringing the best, most efficient product to market as best we can. And then also so that people understand that I believe in some of the madness that I sell. We build products as well. One of the ones I'm working on now is called Staff Peak. It's a psychometric hiring assessment used for hiring, kind of like a predictive index, DISC, Myers-Briggs, this type of stuff. All right, so let's jump in. Okay, welcome to what I refer to as my wall of shame. I like to rotate some products in and out here, but these are what I would consider to be several failed products over the lifetime of product history. Is everybody familiar with and know what these are? I've seen these before, maybe not. And I got a fancy laser pointer here, so I'm going to use it.
We're getting some. Doesn't work.
That wasn't me. All right, fair enough. Anyway, this product here in the top right-hand corner, does anybody know what that is?
Is it a Zoom?
It is a Zoom. Nicely done. Points for you, my friend. Anybody here have a Zoom? Before I roast it? Okay, good. This big, bulky looking automobile type thingy, Pontiac Aztec. Anybody Walter White fans, Breaking Bad? Yes. Look familiar that way? He might have been the only one to have an Aztec. I hadn't seen many others on the road. Bottom row here, this one's pretty easy to identify in the Segway. Right, in the middle we have our infamous BlackBerry from back in the day. How many people in the room had a BlackBerry at some point? I did. Look at that, look at those hands. How many people have a BlackBerry today? 0. Well, then it's on the right slot. Bottom right-hand corner, everybody recognize that, know what that is? It's a little hard to see. I don't know if you can see, there's addresses on here, like start, finish, it's hard to. Yes, MapQuest, thank you. I don't know about you, but not only did I use MapQuest back in the day, I printed out directions and kept them in my car. The technology has changed a little bit, to say the least, since that time. But regardless, the products that I have up here on this slide have failed for one reason or another. So in the work that we do, to me, it's important to know, pulling from examples from history, why did these products fail? In order for us to know how to build the best product, bring that to market, there's a lot of examples out there, unfortunately, of products that have failed, and these are only a few of them. So we'll go through here, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the instances in which, in my opinion, these products were unsuccessful. So starting at the top right-hand corner here, going counterclockwise, the Microsoft Zoom, right? At the time, the MP3 players were increasing significantly in popularity, right? There were a few that were dominating the market, that being the iPod from Apple, obviously. In my opinion, right, the Zoom was a late entry into that market, right? But to me, what was one of the things, besides being from Microsoft and being historically unsexy, unlike Apple, was the product wasn't differentiated enough in that the iPod was very popular and the Zoom was very similar. Therefore, switching costs, right? There wasn't a lot of motivation there for me to jump to Zoom. I had my iPod, I integrate with other products, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to jump over to the Aztec for a moment. I know that one's jumping out here pretty significant. But the Segway. So I don't know how familiar you are or not with the Segway, but it was intended to revolutionize ground transportation. Did it? I don't see that many Segways out there today. They're relegated to like historical tours and terrible B-list movies. Like some actors like fumbling away on a Segway, falling off with it left and right. In my opinion, with the Segway, it's the lack of an ability to truly understand the other options that your customers have and why those were important to them. Right? The Segway is used for like short distance ground transportation, technically speaking, right? What are other alternatives I could use besides a Segway? I heard someone say walking. Exactly. It didn't think about the fact that people literally prefer to walk, right? And there's something that I can get while walking that I can't get when I'm on a Segway is more exercise. Right? That's a positive benefit of me using that as a method of transportation, besides looking a little goofy. BlackBerry, right? I thought I was the coolest kid on the block when I had my BlackBerry Pearl. I had my scroll wheel. It was beautiful, colors applied, all that kind of stuff. Cool at the time, right? But another product had made it into the market and it became an overwhelming hit almost instantaneously. I'm talking, of course, about the iPhone, right? What was different about the iPhone than the BlackBerry devices? We're talking about a touchscreen device, a much larger screen, right? BlackBerry is infamous now at this point for having acknowledged that as a fad. Well, it's not a fad anymore, right? Everyone, ubiquitous today is touchscreen devices. I have one in my pocket, I carry it everywhere I go. Not respecting the threats from new entrants into your market. Classic mistake, we've seen that before. And then I'll gloss over MapQuest quickly, but I would say, in my opinion, with MapQuest, a ruined user experience. It may be hard to see, it's a little pixelated, I apologize for that, but if you look in here, I know this all looks like one blob probably, especially from the back, but in the middle here, this is a strip of ads. And to me, it looks like it blends in with the rest of the page. So it's easy for me to just click on an ad when really all I want to know is how do I get to where I want to go. Right? So the goal of my presentation is to avoid this list. Don't be on this list. All right, moving on. So how do we avoid being on this list? Number one, in the world of product, right, there's so many things to be done at all times. We need a plan, and we need people to buy into our process. After we have a plan, we need to be constantly thinking about testing what we're doing. So the process to be in, and I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with this and have seen this before, the BML, right? Build, measure, learn. That cycle is very important, right? Agile methodology became very popular for a reason. We didn't want to power developers in the back room telling them what to do once, and then 8 months later they bring out product, and what is that? I didn't ask for that. Whose idea was to build this, right? Small incremental changes on an ongoing basis are going to increase our throughput over time. Build, measure, learn is a concept that we want to stick with us, and we want that to be something that we focus on. Okay, so number one, what is our product, right? When that question is asked, the clients that we work with, when I ask them what the product is, the first thing they start talking to me about is, oh, well, I've got this MVP, it's a clickable prototype, it does this, it integrates all these things. I'm like, that's really cool. I still don't know what your product is. Describe for me what your product is. What problem are you solving, right? So you get into, and I'm sure this is something that you may have seen before, but we pull from a lot of the concepts in the lean school of thought. This is a lean canvas for anyone who hasn't seen it before. This is an exercise in truly comprehensively defining your product. There are 9 boxes on here. All of these pieces of information are critical. They're important. If you don't have an answer for these questions, I would argue you don't truly understand your product, its market, its potential, and all of these questions are important. These are going to come up in conversation, so you need to be prepared to be able to speak to them. This is a great exercise that we do, and this is an area in which we start with our engagements, regardless of where your product is and how much progress you've made. It's amazing how many people don't have answers for a lot of these questions. Some of my favorites on here, obviously you've got your problems and your solutions, right? What are the top problems that you're solving? How are you solving them? But for me, your unique value proposition and your unfair advantage are really important. Right? How are you differentiating yourself in the market? There's a lot of information here that for those products on that first slide, had they had better answers in these areas, things may be different. So this is a good exercise to go through. Okay, so where do I get these answers? How do I fill out that lean canvas? People, customers, talk to everyone. Doesn't matter who it is. If they have any form of a vested interest in what you're doing, and until you talk to them, you won't know. So I tell people, and we encourage them at our firm to have your idea from the rooftops. And I one of my favorite quotes here from Howard Aiken one of the arguably godfathers of computing, right? And it's, don't worry about anyone stealing your idea. This is a variation of this quote, but if your idea is any good, you're gonna have to hammer it down people's throats. I live by this motto. Why do I live by this motto? Because I've made this mistake before. I've started building a product, I kept it close to the chest and relatively secretive. I built that product and then I brought it in front of people and they're, what do I do with this? What is this? We've known each other for years and you're just showing this to me now. Like, you've been working on this for a year? Why didn't you talk about this with me before? Right, so conversation is important. If you think your ideas are in jeopardy of being stolen, try to get someone to buy them. Sell them, right? I talked about staff peak and what it is. How many people in here want to give me money for staff peak right now? Any bidders? No hands? Seriously, guys? No one cares. Tell as many people as you got and get feedback, because that's what's really going to matter. Getting your product to market, understanding how well it fits or doesn't fit is going to help you evolve that product and make that product better. Okay. Asking the right questions, also critically important. So I've got two options here, 2 or 3 questions that we could ask when we're talking to a prospective customer, someone who's interested, an investor, or buyer, whatever. We want to learn more about how we build a better product. Of these 2 options here, which question is better for me to ask and why? Number 2. Why number 2?
Because number 1 is going to yield a yes, no answer.
Exactly. It's a closed question, right? What are the possible answers to question number 1?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? How much information did that get? I can predict with 50% accuracy right now what the answer to that question is going to be, no matter who I'm asking it to. Right? How valuable is that to me? Not as much. What are they going to say to question number 2? I have no idea. That's the whole point, right? I'm asking an open-ended question because I want to hear what they have to say in their own words. I don't want to frame a context of what their thought process is. I want that raw data. That's what's so important in product, right? We want all of the information. We want all of the chaos, and then it's our job to make order from it and to identify those patterns and then build those into our product. So whenever you can, ask as many open-ended questions as possible. Follow your process. I was going to put trust the process up here, but I don't know how many of us are Sixers fans from the local Philly market. I've been in trademark disputes before, no, I'm kidding. But anyway, follow some form of a process. This is such an important aspect of what product professionals do, right? For those of us that are in the industry, in product, right, we almost never have executive authority to tell people what we want them to do, right? To hire, fire, and force people into doing things that we need them to do. What we need to do is we need to lead, we need to motivate, we need to get them to buy into our process as far as what we're doing. How do we do that? Well, it's important for us to help our teams understand what to do and when, but the most important aspect of that is why. Why are we doing that? And being transparent in that process has worked infinitely better for us at our firm than any other approach. If our process is transparent and they understand why we're doing what we're doing, they buy into it, they give us that opportunity, and then they see positive results, that builds trust over time. So having processes is important when we're product people, right? So in the grand scheme of things, right, where do we start, where are we going, all that kind of stuff. So in the lean school of thought, there are 2 particular phases of identifying where you are progress-wise with your product. First of which is problem-solution fit, right? Do you have a problem worth solving, and how are you solving it? An important first step to get to, and we're going to talk about the kind of data that you're looking for when you're trying to identify in which of these phases you are and how solid you are in that phase. So again, from the lean school of thought, this is a script, and I'm going to share these slides too so you guys have these. You may not be able to see all this detail, but this is a framework for interviewing customers, right? We're talking about interviewing people, talking to prospective customers. The more data we can get, the better. So this script gives you an idea, and it's a framework to follow, right? You don't have to follow this to the T, but in here, and it may be a little difficult to see, but the most important aspect of this is the main chunk of it, 15 minutes or so, for what they have here, is exploring the customer's worldview, right? Our problem interview is intended to identify from who we're speaking with if they have this problem, what the level of severity of this problem is for them. Do they have any existing solutions to this problem? Are we going to be working towards something that is large enough market-wise that makes sense for us to invest this time and effort into building something? So exploring their worldview, product people's job, in my opinion, Number one responsibility of a great product person is to understand the wants and needs of the customer. There are other responsibilities, but by and large, that is the most important aspect of what you're going to be doing. It is amazing to me how many product managers I speak with in an interview that say, I never talk to the customer. Or even worse, I don't have the opportunity in front of the customer. That's heartbreaking to me. There's so much to learn from speaking to customers. That process is what we do, right? We don't build products for our team. We don't build products for robots, at least not yet. We build products for people. So we need to talk to our customer. I encourage everyone that's doing this kind of work, if you don't have that opportunity, see what you can do to change that. So this is a script to follow for your problem interview, right? Talking to your customer, understanding whether or not they have that problem. Okay, let's assume that we've identified a problem. We want to solve that problem with our product, right? Now we have an idea of what we may want to build or how we're going to solve it. The different process, and again, these can be combined, these don't have to be separate, but they can be combined, is a solution interview. And in this interview, again, in here, the meat of it is a demo. And that we'll get into what I mean by demo, but I'm going to be demoing for them how I'm going to be solving that problem. I want them to get an understanding and a vision for what is this going to be, what can it be, does it solve my problem, and that's the information we're looking to get. Also, while you're conducting these interviews, while you're talking to prospective customers, right, you spend all the time and effort to find someone who you think may be interested in what you're doing. You reached out to them, you scheduled a meeting, you're on the phone with them, they're talking to you, they're giving you valuable information. This was maybe not an easy thing to do. What should we ask them while we're talking to them? Because they match who we're looking to speak with. Anybody familiar with the acronym BAM? No? It's more of a salesy thing. Book a meeting from a meeting. The thing that I always ask at the conclusion of my interview, and a little bit in here, is an ask. Do you know anyone else who has this problem that I can speak with, right? Grow it organically if you can. Referrals are always helpful. Same thing from all of these interviews. Regardless of who you're speaking with, right? You found someone. That effort is always, sometimes not easy. See if they know someone else you can talk to. I get a lot, that is a great way for us to organically grow our audience. Okay, the second phase after problem solution fit is product market fit, right? After you've found problem solution fit, I've identified a problem that is significant enough that needs solving. I've vetted with customers that the solution that we are preparing to solve that problem is adequate, at least in their opinion. Now it's kind of off to the races, right? Now I need to find out, can I achieve product market fit? So in the latter stage, in the former stage, problem solution fit, we're talking to an extent, and the next slide I'm going to get into this a little bit, qualitatively, right? I'm looking to place customers in categories to start identifying patterns. Product market fit, in our opinion, is more of that quantitative, right? We have, the process of the meeting was a bit organic, it was a little bit customized. As we get closer to product market fit, we want to identify patterns and we want to deviate as the least we can from what we're doing at that point. And then scale that, that's where we're looking for that hockey stick, right? User growth, revenue, whatever it is, in order to see, what potential, the project that we're working on, what potential does it have? Do we have something people want? This is the diagram I was referring to, so kind of a process to how you think about it. The first two are categorized as problem solution, and the second two are more product market fit. So after we've identified what we're doing in the first phase, the second phase, we want to verify those things quantitatively, as much data as possible. Okay. Also important to think back to my roasting slide, right? We need a product that is differentiated from the other products on the market, at least to an extent, right? Switching costs can be high. Most people have something that they're using for a reason. We talked about on the first slide, right, the Zoom. Think about Microsoft. Don't be a Microsoft Zoom, right? Differentiate yourselves enough. Give an audience some form of a hook and a reason to want to try using your product. How many people here are familiar with Porter's 5 Forces? You've heard this before, yes? Okay. So this is, in my opinion, a great, more comprehensive way to think about the competition in the market, right? So there are 3 horizontal categories for Porter's 5 Forces. In the center, we have industry rivalry, right? That's what kind of the current landscape looks like. How competitive is it? How many people are in the market? And then on the left-hand side, we have the threat of new entrants who might come into our market, right? Think BlackBerry, don't be BlackBerry. Right? New entrants are coming into our market. We need to respect them. We need to keep an eye on them. We need to see if they're making progress. That's very telling for us. On the right-hand side, we have preventive substitutes, right? Think Segway, don't be Segway, right? Substitutes. An alternative to using a Segway is walking, right? Had they understood the customers they were selling to better, they would have known that before they went into investing millions of dollars in building a product. And then our vertical threats here, we have bargaining power suppliers and bargaining power buyers. So for your suppliers, your cost of goods sold, your raw materials, whatever's going into building your product, do you have a multitude of options or do you have one option, right? That is a different landscape for how much power your supplier has in your process, right? Which can impact the success of your product. Bargaining power buyers, the same on the other end, right? How many options do your buyers have? Are there hundreds, thousands of products on the market that are all free? If so, buyers have a ton of power, and attracting an audience and generating revenue for your product is going to be more difficult. Another good exercise to go to get a better idea of the competition in the industry. Okay, this slide, a little bit more controversial, but this is something I always say, no matter what phase you're in, stop writing code. Everyone jumps immediately into building a product. Now I'm talking, of course, code, I'm talking about virtual digital products. But the first thing everyone wants to do is they want to build an app. When I talk to engineers, when I talk to entrepreneurs, they want to build something, they want it to be beautiful, and they want a perfect user interface, which I understand. I totally get that. And most of the products on the market today are very sexy, so that makes sense. But it is a significant investment in both time and often money. So a lot of what you need to verify can be done without writing code. So I'm not saying never write code. I'm saying don't write the code first, right? There's a lot more that we can do for a lot less money beforehand to get the information we need, which is going to increase our probability of being successful in the end. What should we do instead of writing code? Create a wireframe. How many people in here do mockups? How many people here hate mockups? Oh, cool. Okay, good. Save space. So creating wireframes, there's a couple of tools here. I throw them in here, probably relatively familiar for most of us. Bottom left-hand corner is Balsamic, in the middle is Envision. Those are some unique options. Bottom left-hand corner we have Balsamic is usually low fidelity. Envision is typically high fidelity. The differences being there is your low fidelity mockups are relatively unsexy, they're not particularly colorful. They're intended for one purpose and one purpose only. The bottom right-hand corner is a kind of a beta level product that I think is really cool. It adds interactivity for some mockups that you can create in like other tools like Sketch. That one's called Overflow. There are some videos in here, I think, of demos of those, but if you want to know more about those products and you don't currently, let me know. So one question I have is for Balsamic, right? Balsamic is for low fidelity mockups. Why, when we're creating a wireframe or an initial mockup, would we want to specifically make it unsexy or use a low fidelity mockup? Anybody? Why do I? Yes, please.
I use it for general discussion with developers. So my mockups at that point are to talk about the feasibility of a product in our market. So
Exactly.
I want to talk to the developers, and we just need a raw idea of what it's going to look like, and I don't want to waste a lot of time.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we use it so that way we're just initially showing them the functions and features that they want to see. We don't really want them to look at, oh, how are we going to brand it? Well, we can't think about that right now. Adding colors and changing your font is something we can worry about later. That's much simpler, but we're trying to get the flow that you're looking for.
Exactly, precisely. Thank you both. I heard feasibility, I heard function. Exactly. What are we validating? Right? We're validating, is this functional? Does the way that this works work for you, right? Mr. Customer, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. If you make it beautiful, if we have tons of fancy graphics, right, they may be interested. They may be interested for a different reason. Right? That's not going to last. They're not going to continue to use your product because it looks great. They're going to continue to use your product because it works well. It solves a problem that they have. So making it historically unsexy is actually an advantage at this point, right? I have a smartphone in my pocket. It has, yeah, what's up?
Also, one of the things that I find with our clients is that if it's too pretty, if it looks like what they want, and it is solving their problem, they lose track of that and start to think about all the added features that they want right then. So we haven't achieved what we went there to discuss, and that is getting the financing for what we're about to do.
Agreed. And thank you. Focus, right? We want to focus on a narrow set of problems. At best, one problem, right? We don't want to, this is not the time for how many features can I bake into the first version of my product, right? It just makes it infinitely more difficult for us to get the data we need. And as an example, right, I have a smartphone in my pocket. It's got probably 100 apps on it. How many do I use on a regular basis? Maybe 5. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means as well too. So I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. So next step, right? Now that we have our mockups, we have some validation. We understand that they like the way that it's going to work. They like what it does, or we've identified a problem that's solvable. We want to design and build our MVP. So this is kind of a rough timeline for what's important when we're talking about what do we bake into the first version of our product. These are a couple of milestones, right? Start with a clean slate. For me, one of the really valuable aspects, and it's something we strongly encourage, begin with the number one problem, right? There may be 10 problems that our customers have all identified need solving. It's the product person's job to identify what is the biggest problem and to start there, right? That has dramatic implications further down the road for what we're investing in, right? That could be enough for us to create a product that runs away. Right? We want to get a product in the customer's hands as soon as possible because we need that feedback. The product's not going to be the first version of your product forever. Right? You're going to get the first version, ideally the best version of your product in customers' hands first. That feedback is going to evolve it into what it can become. That's the process you're going to focus on. So this is a fair timeline to, right? And eliminating nice to haves, don't needs, all that kind of stuff. It's just a distraction. It's going to distract your customer. MVP interview script, not much different here, but in this process, we're going to be showing them, maybe demoing them what we have, right? Here's how you use it. And the other valuable stuff that we can do too is if we can watch them use it, that's infinitely valuable. What are they clicking on and why? Asking questions. If you can do it in person, the more intimate setting, the better. Body language, watching what they do, watching how long it takes. These tidbits of information are incredibly invaluable for people like us. So whatever you can do to get an idea on, again, what you are about to build or what you have built, get some feedback on that before you. The whole idea is that before you invest a ton of time and money, you want to be as efficient in this process as you can. There's just so many variables. Okay, so some more advanced stuff that I want to kind of jump into while we have a few moments here. Taking your product to the next level, right? Let's say you've got a product on the market, you're getting some validation, and things are starting to grow, things are going well. You have customers, you're generating revenue, all of these types of things. Like, how do I take my product to the next level? And this is for those of us out there with mature products as well too. So the example that I gave for the 100+ apps that I have on my phone, and 5 of which that I use. There's a reason why I use those 5, because they've formed habits. I formed a habit of using those products for a specific reason. The other 95-ish, I haven't. That's why I don't use them, which reminds me I should probably uninstall them. So getting into this, has anybody ever read the book Hooked?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this comes from that. A friend of mine, Nirial, he's a fairly popular product manager up he's in New York for the most part. This is his model, he's created it, and this is an effort into breaking down how to build a habit-forming product. If you can make your product habit-forming, you have a significant potential there for growth. So there are 4 phases here, and there are 2 examples of the first. I'll go into as an example. So the way this cycle repeats itself, and it's tended to be repeated, and it operates clockwise. In the top left-hand corner, we have trigger. Top right, we have action. Bottom right, we have variable reward, which is significant. And the bottom left, we have investment. And then there are 2 different types of triggers. We have external and internal triggers. I'll walk through a quick example for you of a smartphone app like Pinterest, for example. So the experience of forming, remember, how many people here use Pinterest? Okay, good, fair, good amount of people. So tell you a little bit about what's going on there psychologically, and this is what's in your book. And I have recommendations at the end of the presentation so you can see some of that information. But what's going on when you're using Pinterest, like for a user for the first time, right? Let's say I'm browsing another platform, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I see an ad or I see someone share something, it's been shared with Pinterest onto that platform. I see that and it's interesting to me. It's an interesting photo, it's an interesting experience, an interesting product, whatever it is. For whatever reason, I see that and I'm going to click on it. That is a trigger, and that is an external trigger. It's something that I hadn't seen before, and it's encouraging me to do something, which is take an action. That action I'm doing is I'm clicking on the ad. That ad is going to the Play Store or the Apple Store, and that is giving me the ability to install the app so that I can see more detail about what I clicked on and what I'm interested in. You're seeing more interesting stuff. So similar to that ad or that thing my friend shared, I'm seeing interesting things. I'm getting a reward as I'm scrolling through that. Something's happening to me in my mind that I'm enjoying this experience. Then the investment phase is, as you go through Pinterest, the thing you do is you pin stuff, right? I see cooler stuff that I like and I pin it. I want to save that. I want to capture that moment. So as I'm doing that, I'm investing in the platform, and it's doing some very specific things. Namely, that is making my experience the next time around, which we'll talk about now, custom tailored more so to me, which is very important and forms a habit. So the external trigger before was what caused, so let's say that session's over, right? I close the app, I can do whatever I eat there. What has happened there that I'm not even aware of is shifting that mindset from external to internal trigger, whereas previously I needed to see an ad, something to stimulate me to take an action. What I didn't realize was happening while I was using Pinterest is it was curing my boredom. I was bored, there was something, there was pain, there was pain that was annoying, it was bugging me like a fly buzzing around trying to eat dinner. And it was, Pinterest was solving that pain for me. I was going through it, I was seeing cool stuff, I was engaged, I was really enjoying it. Now, that external trigger is going to flip to an internal trigger. What that trigger is next time, and this will happen subconsciously, you won't even realize it, the trigger for me will become the next time I'm bored, I may subconsciously think, well, what did I do last time I was bored? I used Pinterest. That is my new trigger. I'm now bored, I'm going to cure that boredom, I want that pain to go away, so now I'm going to fire up the Pinterest app. I'm going to go in there, that's my action, so instead of installing it, I'm just opening it. Now I'm using it. My very reward is from all those pins that I did last time, my feed is now more custom tailored to what I want to see. So it's another dopamine hit. I'm going in there and I'm looking at, I'm seeing more custom tailored content. To me, it's just fabulous, right? Now I can get even cooler stuff than I got in my previous session, and I continue to pin. Then I'm continuing to invest. So this cycle, and his book is fantastic. I encourage anyone who hasn't read it to read it. The more frequently you go through these phases, and the more cycles that you complete, his argument is the more habit forming your product becomes. That's why we see a lot of apps like that take off at some point. He has broken it down kind of into this as a process. So, anyway, okay, so some of the resources and where I got some of my content here. I'm going to open up the questions for a few moments. Running lean, as I mentioned, lean, we're obsessed with lean, we love it. Ash Mayor is running lean, Eric Rise is a lean startup, all these kind of things. There's a lot of valuable information in there. Nir's book is in the middle, Hooked. That's where the Hooked cycle comes from, and there's a ton more fascinating stuff in there too. I can talk about it for days. And then Ask on the end is a book that I like, since as product managers, we're typically interviewing people, we're talking to customers. It is a great way to, in a very succinct way, ask the fewest number of questions and get the most amount of information. Right? We want to be sensitive to people's time, we want to talk to as many people as we can. As we're looking for that quantitative data, we want to know how do we do this most effectively. And it gets into surveying, all kinds of stuff. So those are helpful. And again, these slides will be shared too, so you guys have access to them. And then if this is all insurmountable and very difficult, there's always help out there, so hire somebody like me. Talk about this stuff until you guys fall asleep, or we'll just take it from there, no worries. But we offer coaching, training for junior product people, business owners, we do consulting, we will take products that are younger, we'll take products that are more mature, and we'll get them back on track, right? Taking them all to the next level. So that's what I have. I'd like to open it up for some Q&A or questions that you guys might have. Someone's got some. I'll ask my own questions if I have to. Yes, please.
So a lot of this applies to startup type of stuff, but I'm creating enterprise software for justice communities.
Yes.
So habit doesn't really pertain to that because the half things are our application. So, you know, we always, we're trying to make it more sexy so they want to use the application, because we have judges who say, you know, applications are evil.
Yep.
How would you go about that process to engage a non-technical person to use a piece of software?
Good question. So, right.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So I'll rephrase it just and let me know how accurate it is. So what you're saying, and it's absolutely right. A fair bit of this content is catered towards younger products, kind of the startup audience, younger businesses, stuff like that. So for very unique challenges, they have an enterprise level product which are selling to a little bit older users, maybe a little bit less tech savvy. How can this content be repurposed for those purposes, I guess? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So absolutely, and right, no shortage of challenges for product people on a broad spectrum of things. So So a lot of what we talk about here, even though they sound like relatively simple concepts, but they still apply at these higher levels. They may be varying levels of impact, but you can still achieve impact with them. I had a little bit more advanced content, I unfortunately cut out, and exactly, but we can talk about some of that as well too. In particular, the things like developing habit forming is still helpful, even if it's a required product. Because things that we can always do is we can always improve a user experience, right? Because that's always going to help our product grow. If it's something that they're using, right? I pull from a number of examples over the course of history, but for products that have been runaway successes, things that they've often done, even when there wasn't a ton of competition, is they've continually evolved their platform. And they continue to evolve their platform to be better for their users. So even if you don't have external customers, even if they're not buying your product, even if it's someone who's sitting in a job, working a 9 to 5, that's required to use this product, and there's no insight into it whatsoever. A big part of what is going to translate to even better success for enterprise level products is what is their experience like? Right? That is really helpful, really valuable. If I have a better user experience, I'm going to tell people about it. Things that come to mind are like the Quicken suite of products, Intuit, right? Intuit is relatively famous for doing product management right. That in the community, it's pretty popular that you'll hear people say that, right, different ways to do product management, but that Intuit has a unique way in which they do it. And they have some larger, more boring, like less sexy products, right? So things that they've done to make those products better. One program back in the day that I remember hearing about, which I always thought was fascinating, was called Follow Me Home. Anybody heard of that before from Intuit? Okay, cool. So the Follow Me Home product from Intuit was they would have product professionals in the stores where they sold the retail versions of the software, and then when people were purchasing it, they would ask them, hey, I work for Intuit, would it be okay with you if I went to wherever you're going to install this, watched you use it, and help you set it up? Right? That was a really interesting way to get creative, really helpful feedback. But at an enterprise level, like kind of boring product, right? A little bit less sexy product. So there are things that you can do, and I have some more advanced content as well too that we can talk about afterwards. Like the Kona model. Have you heard of it? Are you familiar with the Kona model? Okay, so we talk about that. What that basically talks about is that all features are not created equal, right? There are different features at different times that we can always evolve our product. The backlog's never empty, right? But we can differentiate between what we choose to build and why. So we can talk a little bit more about that too. Yes, please.
One thing I was curious about is sometimes always listening to the customer and what they need drives the product towards failure. Someone famous said that sometimes focus groups have no idea what they want until you show them what they want. How do you feel about that versus what you were mentioning?
Sure, great question. So the question was, a lot of times the customer can drive the product in a direction that you essentially don't want to go. You may meet an untimely demise if you follow every one of the customer's wants and needs. And to an extent, I would agree. But what's important, and again, this is another subtle but important criteria for a product person to have, in that you need to be able to understand the difference between a customer want and a customer need, right? Because I want, everything. My product to do whatever it can do. But there are certain things that I need. So there are ways that you can interact with customers, pushing back, so to speak, on what their requests are, to really validate how significant they are. So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want all 5 of these features that I have to have. Okay, well you have to pay for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and here's how much it costs. Oh, well I didn't know I was going to have to pay for it. Why do I have to pay for it? Because it's not free to develop. So that's what we do, we're running a business. It's like, okay, if I have to pay for it, I only want number 3. Okay, that is a very different answer to, I want all this stuff, to like, I'll pay for that one.
Does that pertain to different products? Like what I was quoting was something Steve Jobs said that,
yeah, of course.
Focus groups tend to never know what they want. You showing them this is what you need is actually a better step in a successful product. Do you feel that that is said after product like Apple's been marketed to a point where whatever they do dictates to everyone else?
Sure. So there's a potential breaking point where when you have that kind of runaway success that like Apple's have with their products, at some point it becomes almost ridiculous, the new stuff that they develop, and people just run and buy anyway. That's strong customer loyalty, right? But that started from a perspective of bringing the best products to market. So I would argue that they'd earned that reputation, the ability to kind of do that, but you need to keep an eye on it, right? Because so did BlackBerry. BlackBerry had the same extremely loyal following. Like the devices were literally ubiquitous. It was the only device you would find in any kind of a business, and it was almost an air of like indignance. Like, I have a BlackBerry, why don't you have a BlackBerry? I'm a more serious business person than you are because I have this device, right? But again, new entrants, times change, you need to keep an eye on that. And I would say to the focus group perspective, I don't like focus groups either. The reason why I don't like focus groups is because groupthink has a tendency to take over, right? Not everyone may be comfortable participating in the same level as everyone else in the room. So some people may dominate, and those opinions may not be shared with everyone else, but that ends up being what it seems like how the group is going. So I like more intimate setting, one-on-one. I think those are much more valuable. Cool. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it.